Whenever I feel the heat from the sun blasting on my neck, I can't help but miss Minnesota. Although I live in Texas now, Minnesota is where I grew up. Although I wanted to go out of state for college, I went to University of Minnesota because it was cheaper to be an in-state resident. The thing you have to keep in mind about Minnesota is that it is very cold. Most of the year I would be bundled up in multiple layers, and even then, I would be freezing. I promised myself that the first chance I got, I would move to someplace warm. You can imagine my jubilation when I was offered a job in Fort Worth after graduation. It seems like a dream come true. It would end up being a nightmare. I moved to Fort Worth in mid-August. My apartment was incredibly cool, but I felt lonely staying in it. The first Saturday I spent in Fort Worth was very boring since I didn't know anyone. I decided to go for a walk to clear my head and give me something to do. The sun was out that day, and it was vicious. I was stumbling through the empty streets until I wandered upon a walking trail in the middle of the woods. I didn't see anyone around, but I decided to venture further. The trail was in the middle of the woods and provided some much needed shade. Despite this, the road on the trail seemed very mushy and squishy, almost like it was alive. I didn't think too much about it. I hadn't exercised in ages, and I was starting to enjoy being outside. I have walked for hours. Next thing I know, it was dark out. Not too dark to where I couldn't see anything, but dark enough to know it's time to go home. I was on my way back that the horror started. On my way back to my apartment, I noted a strange man on the side of the road. I thought this was very odd since I had not seen anyone on that trail the entire day, which is pretty strange. I looked at the man and he looked back. He raised his hand up to the heavens and gestured me to come towards him. As I came closer, I saw that he was wearing a cowboy hat with a bumper sticker that said, "Trump Pence 2016. You poor man," I said. Must have some sort of brain damage." "I do," he said with a goofy smile. "My name is Beau French. Do you live around here?" "I just moved here," I proclaimed. "Why do you ask?" "Well, if you live here, you would know who I am," said Beau. "I've tried running for office several times, but haven't had any luck. I guess the people of Fort Worth don't care much for nitwits like me." "Listen," I said, "do you know how to get off this trail?" I was starting to get bored of Beau talking at this point, but his sudden eruption of laughter startled me. "What's so funny?" I said. Beau continued laughing. "What's so funny?" I asked again. Still only laughter on Beau's part. "What is so funny?" I screamed. "This ain't no trail," Beau howled. I looked down and saw that Beau's zipper was undone and skin was coming out of it all the way to the trail. "This ain't no trail," Beau yelled again. "It's my 18-mile long foreskin." It was at this moment his foreskin lifted up from the ground and chased after me. The chase must have gone on forever, but guess it only had really lasted 18 miles, because that's as long as his foreskin was. The skin zigzagged through the trees and in between cars as I tried to avoid it. I was terrified. Finally, I got to my apartment complex. I typed in the gate code to my building and almost threw up. "What's wrong?" I heard a voice say. It was my neighbour Ed, upstairs. "Ed, don't go outside," I said while trying to catch my breath. I was chased here by a giant foreskin. I sounded crazy to him. Just imagining myself now. What would he be thinking? Don't be crazy, said Ed. There hasn't been a foreskin attack in Fort War for ages. Ed went outside and walked to his car, despite my protestations. Ed, come back in, I yelled. Can't. I promised my daughter I'd be there for the birth of my grandson, Ed said. It was then that the foreskin came. It latched onto Ed's right leg and flung him up into the air. I can still hear the screams today. I ran outside to try and get Ed out of the clutches of the foreskin, but it was too late. When I was back in my apartment, I couldn't stop. Just the thought of what had happened made me hyperventilate. It took me an hour to call 911, but obviously, they did not believe me. No one did. Whenever I would tell people that this is what happened, all I would get is laughter. But I still know what I saw. So just remember, sometimes your dreams can be nightmares. And next time you are in Fort Worth, be careful where you walk.